Picture this, you are 7 years old. Your entire class is singing happy birthday to your best friend. There is chocolate cake, balloons, and laughter everywhere, but you are not there. You are sitting on a plastic chair in the hallway, staring at the floor because your parents told you that celebrating a birthday is a sin against God. Now imagine discovering, decades later, that the men who made that rule are quietly abandoning it, not because God told them to, but because they are hemorrhaging young people so fast that the organization is facing an existential crisis. This is not speculation. This is happening right now inside the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, and the evidence is devastating. Ask any Jehovah's Witness why they refuse to celebrate birthdays, and they will recite 2 Bible stories almost from muscle memory. Genesis chapter 40 describes Pharaoh's birthday feast where he executes his chief baker. Matthew chapter 14 describes Herod's birthday banquet where Salome dances and John the Baptist loses his head. The Watchtower's conclusion is breathtakingly simple. 2 birthday parties appear in the Bible, bad things happen at both, therefore God hates birthdays. But this reasoning collapses the moment you apply it to anything else in the scriptures. Dinners are mentioned in contexts involving betrayal and murder, including the Last Supper itself. Weddings in the Bible are settings for deception, as when Laban tricked Jacob into marrying Leah. Travel by boat nearly kills the Apostle Paul multiple times. Nobody is banning dinner, weddings, or boats. The 2 birthday accounts describe the actions of violent rulers, not divine commentary on the act of marking the day someone was born. Scholars across mainstream Christianity have pointed this out for generations. The Watchtower has never produced a single verse that explicitly says do not celebrate birthdays, not one. The entire doctrine rests on inference and guilt by association, so why did it become iron law? The birthday ban did not appear in the earliest days of the Bible student movement under Charles Taze Russell. Russell's followers celebrated birthdays and Christmas without any doctrinal crisis. The ban emerged gradually under Joseph Franklin Rutherford, the organization's aggressive second president, who systematically stripped away every practice that connected his followers to mainstream society. Rutherford understood something profound about group psychology. The more customs you forbid, the more your members depend on the group for their entire social identity. Birthdays, Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, Mother's Day, national holidays, he banned them all in rapid succession during the 1920s and 1930s. Each ban served the same strategic purpose. It built a wall between witnesses and the outside world. It made leaving psychologically devastating because you would have no idea how to function in a society whose basic rituals you had been trained to reject. The birthday ban was never about protecting spiritual purity. It was a social engineering tool designed to make members feel like aliens in their own neighborhoods, and for nearly a century it worked flawlessly, until the young people started walking away. Here is the number that should terrify Watchtower headquarters. According to the Pew Research Center's Religious Landscape Study, Jehovah's Witnesses have one of the lowest retention rates of any major religious group in the United States. Approximately 2/3 of people raised as Jehovah's Witnesses eventually leave the faith. 2 out of every 3 children raised in this organization decide it is not for them. Let that sink in. The Watchtower is losing the overwhelming majority of its own children. And when researchers and former members dig into why young people are leaving, the birthday ban shows up over and over again as a symbol of everything they reject. It is not that a birthday party by itself drives someone out. It is what the ban represents: arbitrary control, social humiliation, and rules that make no logical sense but demand absolute obedience. Young Jehovah's Witnesses today have something previous generations did not have. They have the internet. They have Reddit forums, YouTube channels, TikTok accounts, and podcasts run by former members who methodically dismantle Watchtower doctrines in real time. A teenager sitting in a Kingdom Hall can pull out a phone and within 30 seconds find a detailed breakdown of why the birthday ban contradicts the organization's own position on piñatas, wedding rings, and anniversary celebrations. They can read the Watchtower's own 2003 Awake article on piñatas, which stated that when the pagan religious meaning of a custom has been lost, and it is simply viewed as entertainment, participating becomes a matter of personal conscience. They can then ask the obvious question that no elder can answer satisfactorily: why does this logic apply to a piñata but not to a birthday cake? When a young person realizes that the leadership is enforcing a rule that violates its own published reasoning, something breaks, trust breaks. And once trust breaks with a generation that has unlimited access to information, it does not come back. This is the part the Watchtower cannot afford to ignore and cannot fix with a magazine article. Every organization needs succession. The governing body members are aging. The elder bodies and local congregations need fresh blood. The pioneer ranks need enthusiastic young publishers willing to spend 70 hours a month knocking on doors. The entire operational infrastructure of the watchtower depends on a continuous supply of young people who are willing to sacrifice careers, education, and normal social development to serve the organization's interests. That pipeline is drying up. Former elders who have left the organization report that congregations across North America, Europe, and Australia are struggling to fill basic organizational roles. Ministerial servants are not stepping up to become elders. Young men who would have been groomed for circuit overseer positions a generation ago are instead quietly fading from activity. Young women who were expected to pioneer are enrolling in universities instead, a path the organization has spent decades aggressively discouraging. The numbers tell a brutal story. In many Western countries, the watchtower's growth has flatlined or turned negative. The growth they report globally is increasingly concentrated in developing nations in sub-Saharan Africa and parts of South America, regions where internet access is still limited and the information asymmetry that protects watchtower doctrines from scrutiny still holds. But even in those regions, the clock is ticking. Smartphone penetration in Africa is exploding. Young witnesses in Lagos, Nairobi, and Kinshasa are discovering the same critical content that drove their counterparts in London, Sydney, and New York to leave. The watchtower's global growth strategy has an expiration date, and leadership knows it. In 2022, the Norwegian government revoked the watchtower's official registration as a religious community and cut off approximately 12 million Norwegian krone in annual state subsidies. The reason was explicit. The practice of shunning former members, including minors, constituted a violation of members' human rights and their right to freely leave a religious organization. This was not a symbolic gesture, this was real money disappearing, and it created a terrifying precedent. If Norway could strip funding based on shunning practices, Belgium, Germany, France, and other European nations with similar human rights frameworks could follow. The watchtower sued to reverse the decision. During legal proceedings, their shunning policies and their treatment of members who violate rules, including the birthday ban, were scrutinized in ways the organization had never faced. Internal documents were examined. The gap between public teaching and private elder instructions was exposed. Facing the prospect of losing religious tax exemptions and government grants across an entire continent, the governing body did something unprecedented. They started changing rules they had insisted were divine commands. In 2023 and 2024, a wave of policy changes rolled out with stunning speed. Beards were permitted, dress codes were relaxed, shunning guidelines were softened, at least on paper. The word disfellowshipped was quietly replaced with removed in official communications, a cosmetic rebrand designed to make the same practice sound less harsh to government regulators. And buried within these changes was a critical shift in how elders handle birthday celebrations. The confidential correspondence guidelines and shepherding directives now instruct elders not to convene judicial committees simply because a member attended a birthday event. Counsel is recommended. Expulsion is not automatic. The governing body did not announce this change from the platform. They did not publish an article explaining the theological reasoning. They simply changed the enforcement mechanism in secret documents that regular members never see. The watchtower cannot publicly reverse the birthday ban. Doing so would be an institutional admission that millions of members suffered needlessly. Every child who sat in a hallway, every parent who refused to acknowledge their son or daughter's birthday, every family that was torn apart when a member was disfellowshipped for attending a birthday dinner. All of that pain would be retroactively declared pointless. The legal and emotional liability would be staggering. So instead, they have adopted a strategy of silent deletion. They stop publishing articles about birthdays. They stop emphasizing the doctrine in convention talks. They instruct elders to handle it quietly. They let the rule remain technically on the books while ensuring it is no longer actively enforced in most congregations. This is not a theory, it is a documented pattern. The watchtower has done this before with other embarrassing positions. Their ban on organ transplants, which they once equated with cannibalism, was quietly reversed in 1980 without any apology to members who refused life-saving procedures. Their ban on certain vaccines was silently dropped. The pattern is always the same: enforce with absolute authority, reverse without any acknowledgement, and expect members to never ask questions. The birthday ban is dying, not because the governing body received new spiritual insight, not because they discovered a Bible verse they had previously overlooked. It is dying because the rule has become a net liability. It drives away young people. It creates legal exposure in countries with human rights frameworks. It generates devastating publicity in an age when every former member has a platform, and it cannot withstand even 5 minutes of logical scrutiny when compared to the organization's own positions on anniversaries, baby showers, and piñatas. The men in Warwick are making a cold calculation. The birthday ban costs more than it delivers. It isolates members, yes, but it isolates them so thoroughly that they leave entirely. A rule designed to keep people inside the walls is now driving them out the door in historic numbers. For every current Jehovah's Witness reading this, the question is not whether the birthday ban will eventually disappear. It will. The question is what that disappearance tells you about every other rule you are currently sacrificing for. If a doctrine that was presented as God's unchangeable moral law can be deleted to protect a corporation's tax status, then it was never God's law, it was a policy. And policies change when the price of maintaining them becomes too high. The children who sat in those hallways deserved better. The teenagers leaving in record numbers know it. And now, so do the men at the top. They just hope you never figure out the real reason they are finally letting go.